Okay, so find an expression for the inverse function of f. So I rewrite it as y equals first, and then perhaps what I'll do here then, think about the fact now that we need to get x equals, okay? So we've got to think about how we're going to rearrange this here, how we're going to do the algebra to get x equals. You might think, oh, let's take that up to power minus 1, but if you do that, if you take that up and put it as a bracket, power minus 1, it's just going to get messy, isn't it? Remember, we want to get x on its own. So one thing I was thinking is take this over the other side, the whole fraction, make it positive, of course, because it's a negative fraction. If I take it over, it becomes a positive fraction, and we get 4 there. And if I take that y over this side, it becomes minus y. Okay, so you've taken that over this way, and then you've taken the y over that way. Now, the next thing you could do is actually swap these, isn't it? You could swap these. The way of thinking of this is, because you're dividing by this here, you're dividing by this. Well, if you take it over the other side, you're going to be timesing these two together. Okay, well then, of course, take this then down and divide. So you just swap them straight away. So you get 7 over 4 minus y equals to 2 minus 3x. Okay, and then, let's think, where can we go from here next? I'm thinking we'll swap again. So I'll think, let's take this minus 3x over here. So it becomes positive 3x. Okay, take that over, it was positive 3x. Leave the 2 where it is, but take that fraction over this way now. So you get that. And then to finish off, of course, then, you've got to get x equals, well, we've got this 3 here, so we need to divide the whole thing by 3. So you could do that, couldn't you? Take the whole thing over, divide by 3. Now, that's fine, right? And it's lovely the way that's left there. You could think maybe it's just a bit tidier, because you're dividing by 3. Just write that as a third and then do a bracket there. I think that might be a nicer way of writing it, because a third of this is the same as this divided by 3, isn't it? So maybe a better way. So the inverse function then of x is what we've got here. Okay, so in terms of x, we're done there. So we've got to then find the domain of the inverse here. Okay, of course we're going to focus on our f to start with, aren't we? To get that, we've got to think about what we've got for f, and we've got to think about the domain for f here. So they give us the domain for f in the question to be minus infinity and including 0. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to put these values in, the domain values in here. I'm going to put them in here to see what comes out, which will give me my range. And once I've got my range, I can then say, well, the range then is obviously the domain of the f to the minus 1. So let's put minus infinity in. So remember, you can't say f of minus infinity equals 2, right? It doesn't quite make sense, because minus infinity isn't a number. It's just there. It's a symbol to show that it just goes on forever. Negative values. So we sort of think about the fact that what it tends to, what it goes to. Okay, so minus infinity will go to, well, if I put it in, okay, I've got here this. Okay, now we shouldn't worry too much about what's going on here, right? Too much. Straight away, when you see this, you've got a number on the top, but you've got this on the bottom. Now, you don't really need to do any more work here. If you feel happier, you might think, well, let's just sort of double negative there makes a positive. If you want to do that, you can. Okay, so you've got 7 over 2 plus 3 times infinity. But what you need to see is here, it's just a constant up here. It's just a constant, and you're dividing it by this. Now this is infinity, isn't it, if you think about it? 2 plus 3 times infinity is infinity. So when you divide something by infinity, it's just going to go to 0, isn't it? You know, if you divide a cake up, and there's loads of people you've got to give it to, they're not going to get much. Okay, so if you divide the cake for 1,000 people, they're going to get a slither, aren't they? So if you're going to divide it by infinity, they're going to get nothing. So this will tend to 4 take away 0. So you've still got that 4 there. Okay, there's still the 4 there, but you're taking away this. And of course, you've got something divided by infinity, which is going to be 0. So 4 take away infinity is equal to 4. Okay, when I put 0 in, so put 0 into here, that's a lot easier to work out. So you put 4 minus 7 over. Well, if I put 0 in here, it'll be 2 take away 3 times 0. Okay, so 2 take away 3 times 0 is just 2. So 4 take away 7 over 2 is a half. Okay, so you could see then that minus infinity goes to 4, 0 goes to half. So the range will be half 4. Okay, you put the lowest number first, half, and then 4. Now, the half came from 0, didn't it? The half came from 0, which is included. So I need to include that there, but the 4 came from minus infinity, which is not included. So there's the range. So for f inverse, the domain will be the range, won't it, of f. So you get half 4.